I made a recent video talking about the controversy that was raised when Kanye West made some of the anti-Semitic statements and the response that we saw all around because of those statements and what it seems like that may have meant. I remember making that video and I was commenting in that video that one thing that really struck me is the fact that it is widely known, or it should be widely known, that many members, particularly in the black community in the United States, share that kind of same view. And it seems like many people really just pulled themselves away from him and away from that kind of statement really quickly when he said that. But it was kind of confusing to me, because I know, having listened enough of what many of those people say, many black people in the United States, particularly in the celebrity class, in the celebrity grouping, many of them have views very similar, and some of them even worse than many of the things that Kanye West said concerning the Jews and their position in terms of leading and owning and running different aspects of the entertainment industry. So I was a little taken aback. And then I saw Dave Chappelle, legendary comedian. Some call him the GOAT in terms of comedy, the greatest of all time. I don't know about all of that, but he is a really good comedian. And it's clear that the man is intelligent. When you listen to him talk, when you listen to how he breaks things down, obviously he's intelligent. So I heard he was on Saturday Night Live. Now, SNL for quite some time now hasn't really been funny. They've been struggling to make people laugh for a long time now. If they didn't have their crowd that laughs on command, it would have been a really strange show for quite some time now. But he went on there and he was the host. He was the guest host on SNL. And his opening monologue, he used that to speak about that incident, the whole Kanye West anti-Semitism, even bringing in Kyrie there. And when I looked over to social media and even some articles after the piece, I didn't look at the piece live. I didn't watch the piece for quite some time. I saw the news about it and the comments and tweets and posts about it before I actually saw or listened to the piece. And they were talking about the fact that Dave Chappelle roasts Kanye West during his Saturday night monologue, and I saw that, as it will go viral, not as it will, it went viral over on Twitter. That was the viral piece, Dave Chappelle roasts Kanye. So it seems like you're right. He is of the view that what Kanye said was really outside the bounds, and he came in there to roast him. But then I took in the piece, I listened to what he said, and that does not sound like a roast to me. And then, judging by some of the reactions that came afterwards from that, some people were like, yeah, we don't like this either. That's some anti-Semitism. And some people seem like they would wish that Chappelle would get in the same kind of trouble that Kanye did. But it doesn't seem like that is going to happen. And I think Chappelle, as it were, did a bit of a lesson, how to Mr. West, in how maybe you could broach some of these subjects without necessarily getting that much into trouble. We're going to dive into that. I hope to just use snippets enough, and we'll talk about it enough so that we don't have to run afoul of their copyright rules and we have a copyright strike coming or anything like that. I'm just trying to take little snippets of it to just get the story. I'm sure those guys will be very quick with trying to take their DMC strikes down if you only use too much. So we're going to look at some of that to see if we could figure out how exactly Chappelle roasts Kanye, or what exactly was it? Was it more of a defense, or was it more of a roast? All right. If you haven't hit that like button yet, please do hit that like button. Drop a comment. Tell me what you think about this whole thing. Did you find what Mr. Chappelle said? Well, obviously, you'd have to listen to what he said. Did you find what he said to be sensible, or was it still anti-Semitic? Was it still something that was outside the bounds? Was what he's saying, do you think what he said was more in agreement with Kanye, or was he opposing what Kanye said? All right, let's jump into this.
But before I start tonight, I just wanted to read a brief statement that I prepared.
I think the reading of the brief statement that he prepared is really wise, because it starts off with a preface, here's how you are supposed to take what I'm going to say from here on out.
I denounce anti-Semitism in all its forms. And I stand with my friends in the Jewish community. And that, Kanye, is how you buy yourself some time.
And I think after you listen to the majority of what he says in regard to Kanye, that little piece might actually be the most important part of the lesson. Like, it seems to me nearly like he is showing Kanye the how-to in how to broach and bring up these criticisms. He did the cancel apology before. That's the apology that everyone comes out with after they're cancelled and the organizations that they're involved with have distanced themselves from them. Then you have to come and put this apology out and say you stand with members of that community, etc., etc., etc. But he said it before. You can't tell him to apologize and say he stands with the community because he has already said it.
I've probably been doing this 35 years now. And early in my career, I learned that there are two words in the English language that you should never say together in sequence. And those words are the and juice.
Again, this reminds me of the first video I made on this. I don't understand why you'll go through the trouble of trying to silence people or make them not say things like this when it's such a widely held opinion. If people believe, as he said here, that in show business you cannot even mention the Jews. And if you looked at my previous video, I showed a video that Charlemagne the God, as he calls himself, he himself said something very similar, that, you don't mention the Jews and you try to stay out of that, to, not get yourselves in trouble. And if people are saying something like that and you say that's a lie, and the way you try to make it be shown as a lie is you make them not be able to say it, then you're not proving it to be a lie. That's not what you're doing there. He mentions he can't remember how it started. And then he goes through to show you that, yeah, it seems very obvious that he paid a lot of attention to exactly what went on throughout the whole incident. So he's making it seem like, I'm just talking by the way here. I don't really know for sure what happened, but yeah, clearly he paid a lot of attention. He wrote this entire piece based on, it seems like just about everything that happened in the whole back and forth in that incident, he was very much aware of here. Then in his monologue, he goes through some of the more regular racial ethnic jokes where you make just a joke about the funny words in the community, and you to me, it's a kind of comedy masterclass he's trying to give there, in a sense too, where, all right, he started with the controversy and now he just veered into, just general teasing, making fun of the weird words that you'd make fun of in any unique community. And then he jumps back into the whole Kanye thing there, addressing when he went onto the podcast and he said that he could say anti-Semitic things and Adidas cannot drop him, and yes, they dropped him.
When he woke up, he went on Drink Champs again. This time, he was on one. He was mad about something. He said, I can say anti-Semitic things and Adidas can't drop me. Now what? Adidas dropped that immediately.
That is kind of funny. The fact he said, he did say that he could say what he wants and Adidas can't drop him. Well, yeah, they proved him wrong on that one. I don't know for sure what he was thinking. Then maybe he has some kind of legal agreement where although Adidas dropped him, he might still be able to get a big payout from it or something like that in his contract. I do not know. But apparently he was misinformed about his ability to say what he wants and continue being in a contracted relationship with Adidas.
Ironically, Adidas was founded by Nazis. And they were offended. I guess the students surpassed the teacher.
Yes, and Adidas was founded by Nazis. I spoke about this in a piece I did previously, and someone in the comments was saying, no, that's not true. And yeah, it is. It's so obvious. Adidas and Puma was founded by Nazis, but Adidas, the problem I have with that when it comes to the Adidas one, as I said in the contemplation, Adidas has announced that they're going to stop having Yeezy, Kanye's name-ish, written on the sneaker, but they're still going to sell his design. Okay, so then you're saying that it's the name of that anti-Semite that's just too horrible to be broadcasting out there. And if that is the case, Adidas, if you're wondering where did they get such a unique name from? Well, Adi was his first name, a nice pet name for his first name, and Das was the shortened form of his surname, Dassler. Nice German strong surname. And the Adi that the pet name was, the lengthened version of that, the full version of Adi, was Adolf. Yes, one Mr. Adolf Dassler was the founder of Adidas. So, yeah, Adolf, the Nazi, with his name on all of these sneakers, it's a kind of strange place to be in as the Adidas company. If you're talking about the name of anti-Semites, well, yeah, your whole brand name itself could be brought into some question.
This is a rule, the rules of perception. If they're black, then it's a gang. They're Italian, it's a mob. But if they're Jewish, it's a coincidence, and you should never speak about it.
That is the problem. That is the problem. People notice things. Obviously, people notice things. If you go through to any industry and you notice that there's a prevalence of a certain group of people, obviously you're going to notice that. And then if that same industry is very manipulative, is very oppressive, is very advantageous, yeah, you're going to notice that it's the group of these same people in charge of that industry that are doing this thing. And for the example, they are black gangs. They call the gang a black gang. The Crips and Bloods are considered as black gangs. They call certain groups Italian mafia. That's the Italian mob. So is it wrong to point out a Jewish mafia if that is what you're seeing? And would that be anti-Semitic as in a racial or racist trope? Or is it just being descriptive? Are you using that as an adjective? You're just trying to describe what you are seeing here. It's Jewish because majority Jewish, and it's a mafia because it functions as such. He goes on there to mention that he has been to Hollywood, and the regular trope that you hear so many people talk about, it's a lot of Jews. He said that quite literally.
I saw one news pundit screaming about Kanye. She said, mental health is no excuse for that type of language. Yes, it is, bitch.
Well, I wouldn't call the lady a female dog, but that aside, he is right. He is actually right. If you are saying that you do believe this man is mentally ill, he's crazy, then yeah, that is actually an excuse for a lot of things. You could kill someone and get away with killing someone if you are mentally ill. So I would say saying something off color is actually an excuse. It is actually an excuse. He went on, though, to say that he doesn't even believe that Kanye is crazy. He might be a little unwell, but he doesn't believe he's crazy. And I've said this before. When you look at the things he is saying, I'm not sure about his full mental status, but he obviously isn't totally off. The man is speaking about something specific. He's trying to bring up something. And especially noting the fact that he has said before that his first bout of mental illness was triggered by some strange actions where people, as it were, took advantage of him and admitted him to the hospital when he was not actually in that state, and they gave him medicine that he didn't need. That's according to him. To call him mentally ill just like that without any proof of it necessarily is a bit of a stretch. But if you do believe he was indeed mentally ill, well, yeah, that might actually be an excuse.
If you had some kind of issue, you know what I mean, you might go out to Hollywood and your mind might start connecting some kind of lines, and you could maybe adopt the delusion that the Jews run show business. It's not a crazy thing to think. But it's a crazy thing to say out loud. And I come on.
To me, when you listen to this, does that sound like disagreement with Kanye that, he phrased it as a delusion, but that sounds like there's a sprinkle of sarcasm in there, where if you go out there and you see some connections, you might get the delusion that the Jews run everything, but and he is saying it's not a crazy thing to think. True. But it's a crazy thing to say out loud. And that is the problem right there. Right there, I think is a big part of the problem. A big part of the problem with it. I was looking at some of the reactions to some of this too. And Jon Stewart defends Dave Chappelle's SNL monologue. Censorship doesn't end anti-Semitism. So he was saying that, people all about are asking him. Jon Stewart was the former host of some one of those late night talk shows, a very popular comedian guy. He's a friend of Dave Chappelle. He says, everybody calls me like, you see Dave on SNL? And I say, yes, we're very good friends. I always watch and send nice texts. Stewart began. He normalized anti-Semitism with the monologue. I don't know if you've been on comment sections on most news articles, but it's pretty normal, Jon Stewart is saying. It's incredibly normal. But the one thing I will say is I don't believe that censorship and penalties are the way to end anti-Semitism or to gain understanding. I don't believe in that. It's the wrong way for us to approach it. Now, I agree with him here. If you censor people who believe that there's a secret cabal who censors people, and then you censor them for having that belief, how are you going to pull them away from that belief? It just does not add up. I'd like to meet the Anti-Defamation League. That's the main Jewish body that speaks against anti-Semitism across the world, I believe. And I'd like to speak to them and figure out how do they figure this is going to work? How they figure that is going to work? That anyone who mentions that maybe the Jews have a lot of power in show business and we don't like what they do there, that you're going to criticize them and make sure they cannot say that in public again. How is that going to work to protect Jews? How is that going to work to decrease the amount of stigma that Jews face? I don't get it. I don't get how that's going to work at all. To me, when I look at that kind of reaction, the only thing I see is you're going to make people bury themselves deeper into these conspiracies. If you're calling it conspiracies, that's exactly what's going to happen. People are going to believe it more, especially for someone like Dave Chappelle or someone like Kanye West, who have said that they have some personal experience with some strange things going on with the whole hierarchy inside of show business. There's a clip going around now with Dave Chappelle and Oprah way back, I believe that was in the early 2000s, after he ran away from a $50 million contract and ran away to Africa for a while and just disappeared off the grid. He was saying and explaining why he did that. Let's take a listen on this.
Everybody wants to know, why'd you walk away from $50 million?
Well, I wasn't walking away from the money.
Yeah.
I was walking away from the circumstances that were coming with the newfound plateau.
Yeah.
It takes a while when you punch through to adjust to the atmosphere. It was completely outside of my frame of reference. I've been in show business since I was 14, and I've heard the stories of what happens, and I've seen these kinds of things play out in front of me.
Okay.
When
you say you heard the stories,
the guy was there, and he's saying that he heard and saw some of these strange things. Like, if you're like, for me, I have never been to Hollywood. I am no celebrity star out there, so I have no idea how it works on the inner side. But I will assume that there's a lot more there than meets the eye. Everything there isn't always as it seems. They're actors, it's entertainment, it's show business. That's the given assumption. And there are some strange things that do happen. And if someone is saying something like this, that they ran away from $50 million because of some of the things they saw, that gives you some pause.
what do you mean? What stories?
I mean, you see before, look, Mariah Carey made a $100 million deal, and 3 months later, she's all of a sudden mysteriously crazy. Or Martin Lawrence punches through and he's waving a gun on the street screaming, they're trying to...
Yeah, we hear those stories.
And it always happens around the time of their career where it seems as though they're crossing over the next plateau.
In that same interview, he also mentioned that they were trying to medicate him. They were trying to make him think that he was crazy. Sounds familiar? They were trying to make him think that he was crazy. And part of the reason he ran away to Africa without telling anyone is if they were trying to say that he was mentally ill and he let anyone know that he was trying to leave to go to Africa, because they were saying he was crazy, that would have just fueled that same, as it were, proof that he was indeed crazy, and who knows where that would have ended. The addition to that, from what Kanye himself said, was that seems to be a lot of what was going on with him. He recently revealed some text sent to him by a very strange figure, a Jewish man, strange enough, but he's Canadian also. He was a member of the Canadian intelligence, and then he's now a personal trainer to celebrities. A very strange combination of portfolios and hats that this man wears. And the man threatened him in no minced words. He clearly threatened him and said that, you have to change what you're saying. We're going to have a discussion on this, or else I'm going to drug you again, basically. And he was speaking about this in an interview. I can't remember when this interview was exactly, but here's an interesting little tidbit here.
Myself, belt buckle. Y'all can shoulders looking like y'all are interested for some reason, and they wanted to medicate me every day. You realize, like, they could have just switched the medication, and I wouldn't be here. And on the news, they would have said it was because of a mental issue, right? Yeah. I ain't never been back to the hospital since 2015. But every time they say I'm crazy, it's just when I'm saying the truth. So what's the crazy part, really?
That is a relatively fair point. And some people have pointed out that there are indeed some celebrities. He said this at the end of the interview too. He listed off a list of celebrities. You could go and look for that interview if you'd like. A list of celebrities that died or went missing or went crazy under suspicious circumstances, and that's a fair point. He could have been gone, some kind of incident played off, and they would have said it was a mental issue, and I think a lot of the world would have believed that. And he's saying since then he hasn't been on any medication, and they're saying he's crazy, and he is insisting he's not. What he's saying, he just believes to be the truth. And if your way to try to deal with this is say that he's crazy and try to silence him, when he's trying to say there is some kind of secret truth there, that sounds like the recipe for creating more conspiracy. It doesn't sound like people who are trying to, allow someone to just see what the facts of the matter is. It just does not sound like that. You tell me, do you think that Mr. Chappelle went there and roasted Kanye, or do you think that sounds a lot more like agreement than a roast? Drop a comment, tell me what you think. That's all I have for now. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained, and I will see you in the next video.